Let's talk about net neutrality for a minute, because this is one of those issues that really demonstrates how easily the masses can be whipped up into a frenzy over a non-issue. As you may recall, just a little bit of background. So the internet launched back in the 1990s without anything known as net neutrality, and it existed that way for over 20 years until the year 2015. When Obama put in place so-called net neutrality, which was FCC regulation. I think it's Title II regulation of the internet. And that existed for a couple of years until the present day, when Trump's FCC rescinded that regulatory oversight and took away net neutrality. Now, that's the factual background. No one can argue with that. That's what happened. That's how it was. Most of the history of the internet has seen incredible growth, incredible success of the internet without anything like net neutrality. Nobody had ever heard of net neutrality. We didn't need anything like net neutrality. But when Trump's FCC was getting ready to rescind net neutrality, the left went insane and began spreading all kinds of false scare stories that said that if it's rescinded, then everybody's going to lose their internet or have to pay more for their internet, or people are going to be blocked from visiting websites about abortion or lesbian and gay websites, like LGBT people totally freaked out for no reason whatsoever and said that their sites were going to be censored. Well, that's nonsense. And here's how you know it's nonsense. Number one, net neutrality has already been rescinded. And guess what? Nobody is being blocked from visiting lesbian and gay websites. And secondly, there's been all kinds of censorship taking place under net neutrality, including Google censoring me and Natural News, and Facebook censoring practically every conservative website on the internet, and Twitter censoring conservative sites, and YouTube shutting off conservative sites. So net neutrality didn't stop censorship, even though that's what its proponents claimed it would do, that it would make it impossible for people to be censored or for your access to be censored. It didn't do that at all. It turns out that net neutrality is another big left-wing lie. It's another big government power grab to regulate an entire industry which would harm innovation. Net neutrality was a scam. It was sold to people as something it wasn't. The name is deceptive. Just like the Patriot Act is a deceptive name for the law passed in 2001 that allowed the government to spy on all Americans. Remember that? It's called the Patriot Act. Well, net neutrality is a false name as well. It's not about neutrality. It's about government control and eventually government censorship. You know how talk radio, for example, conservative ideas have been very successful in talk radio over the years. And it caused leftists to freak out and demand what they called equal time on the airwaves. In other words, when they saw that it was conservative shows that were being more successful, because radio is a medium where you have to make sense. Radio is a medium that's often rooted in logic and reason. And liberals can't argue or reason anything. They don't have any reasons behind what they believe other than raw emotion or anger or mania. And so they haven't been very successful in radio at all. I think Alec Baldwin tried to have a radio show for like 2 minutes, and he didn't get any calls, and he was just really bad at being a radio host. And so that show was gone. So the left said that, well, we want equal time on the airwaves. So they demanded equal time, where for every hour of a conservative radio show, there had to be an hour of a liberal radio show, even though the liberal shows couldn't compete in a fair marketplace of ideas, because their ideas are lunacy. Nobody wanted to listen to that stuff. Net neutrality is the same thing. Net neutrality is the desire by the left to make sure that conservative ideas don't dominate the internet. That's really what it comes down to. And by the way, as I'm talking to you here, I'm not a strict conservative by any means. You know, I'm a social progressive. I'm, in some ways, an environmental progressive. I'm a social libertarian is the way to say it. I believe in individual liberty, individual choice, individual freedom. Marry whoever you want to marry, as far as I'm concerned. That's not my business. But when it comes to fiscal issues, I'm definitely a conservative on those issues and on individual liberties and protecting the Constitution and so on. And as someone who is rooted in reason and individual liberty, I don't want the government managing the internet. We didn't need the government managing the internet for the internet to become the platform for the largest industries in the world, did we? No, the internet was just fine all by itself, unregulated. Nobody's getting censored from gay websites. Nobody's being charged outrageous fees. In fact, access fees to the internet have been going down year after year after year. There's no need for net neutrality. It's just the government trying to assert itself into a position of power over something that they want to control. And by they, I mean the left. You see, the left believes in big government. They believe that government should be in control of everything. Most of them are kind of closet communists. They think that centrally planned economies are the only thing that works. And in order to do that, they have to have control over every sector of society: education, science, medicine, politics, media, and of course the internet, and other areas, even history. They have to teach a false history in order to indoctrinate people into things that aren't true. And they have to teach false science to convince people that climate change is real when it's actually a scientific hoax. The list goes on and on. They have to control and dominate all these institutions because they cannot compete in the free market of ideas. And that is why it is a very positive thing that the Trump administration rescinded so-called net neutrality and took the FCC out of the picture and just let the free market continue to allow the internet to grow freely, which is what we need. See, I support freedom for the internet, which means no net neutrality. And if you support freedom of information, you should be against net neutrality too, because that was government control over, eventually, internet speech. It's just like, you know how Google censors news sites that are conservative, or Facebook censors them, or YouTube censors them. That's what they were trying to do, that with the entire internet, to use the FCC eventually to censor, through so-called net neutrality, to censor conservative websites by claiming that there wasn't equal time for the liberal websites. So they would have to in order to achieve equality, or wait, let me say it correctly as a liberal, equality. In order to achieve equality, they would have to censor the conservative websites so that the liberal websites, which make no sense, get artificially pumped up. That was the plan. That's net neutrality. That's what they were actually trying to achieve long term. And that's why the left promoted it. Why do you think so many people on the left were begging, I mean, even threatening? They threatened to kill, what's his name, Pai, Ajit Pai, maybe? I think it's Pai, the FCC guy, who's the commissioner of the FCC. They threatened to kill that guy. There were death threats all over Twitter, all over Facebook and YouTube, and guess what? None of those people got censored. You ever notice that? None of those people had their sites shut down, even though they were unleashing death threats to the FCC commissioner, which is a felony crime, by the way. They didn't get their sites shut off, did they, or their accounts? No, because Twitter, Facebook, Google, all those websites, YouTube, they support people who issue death threats to conservatives, which just goes to show you how stupid the whole idea of net neutrality was in the first place, because it was supported by people who support killing those with whom they disagree on politics. That's how insane it has become. So if you got caught up in this and you were all pro-net neutrality, you might want to step back and rethink, why did you believe that? How did you get suckered into it? How did they brainwash you into believing that, when the truth is it was another attempt to control the internet? Thanks for listening. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger.
Learn more at healthrangerreport.com.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our mission, visit us at healthrangerstore.com for the world's largest selection of lab-verified superfood and nutritional products for healthy living. It's at healthrangerstore.com.